What if I told you that the United States once deposed a queen, not in Europe, not in Asia, but right here in the Pacific? What if paradise itself, Hawaii, was once a kingdom with its own king, until American ambition altered its fate forever? Raised in Hawaiian royalty since her birth in 1838, Liliʻuokalani came of age in a world where her people's customs were gradually fusing with external influences. She was schooled both in Hawaiian culture and Western ways to become a figure larger than she could have ever dreamed of. Intelligent, musical, and strong-willed, she was a leader long before she ever wore the crown. When her brother, King Kalakaua, passed away in 1891, Liliʻuokalani was crowned the first and only queen to serve the Hawaiian kingdom. Her coronation was not merely the ascension of a new queen. It was the optimism of a nation fighting to maintain its identity as foreign powers became increasingly dominant with each passing year. To her people, she represented grit and the ability to reclaim power that had been slipping into foreign hands. However, even as she took her seat upon her throne, storm clouds of political force and foreign ambition already hung low over her kingdom. Hawaii's location in the middle of the Pacific made it far more than just a paradise of beaches and palm trees. It was a prize every major power wanted. For centuries, ships crossing between America and Asia stopped in Hawaii to refuel and trade, turning the islands into a gateway of the ocean. By the late 1800s, the United States saw Hawaii as the perfect place for both business and defense. Its fertile soil was ideal for sugar plantations, which became the backbone of the economy and tied Hawaii closely to American markets. But beyond sugar, Hawaii's deep harbors, especially Pearl Harbor, promised unmatched military value. Dominion of the islands equaled domination of trade routes across the Pacific, and in a world where countries fought hard for dominance, Hawaii was too valuable to be neglected. To Queen Liliʻuokalani, increased attention was a blessing and a danger, as it put her monarchy at the nexus of worldwide aspirations. As Hawaii's sugar industry flourished, a new class of powerful figures emerged. American and European businessmen, many of them descendants of missionaries who had first arrived decades earlier. These men controlled vast plantations and quickly became the economic backbone of the islands. But with money came political ambition. They began to push for laws that favored their profits, often at the expense of the Hawaiian monarchy's authority. Their riches afforded them influence over trade treaties with the United States, and they soon dominated the kingdom more than many native rulers. By the 1880s, they had forced King Kalakaua to sign the so-called Bayonet Constitution, which took away from the monarchy much of its authority and granted voting power almost exclusively to landowners, most of them foreigners. For Queen Liliʻuokalani, who came into power following the death of her brother, this increasing dominance of foreign planters was not only an economic threat but an overt threat to her country's independence. At the time Queen Liliʻuokalani ascended to the throne, she knew that her people yearned for change. The Bayonet Constitution had undermined the monarchy and silenced countless native Hawaiians, so that actual power rested in the hands of influential foreign planters. Vowing to restore balance, the Queen made public her intention to create a new constitution. She had a big vision. She envisioned bringing power back to the crown, restricting the influence of the outside world, and restoring political power to native Hawaiians. The action filled her people with hope, as she was seen as a leader who would struggle for their dignity. But to the foreign businessmen who had grown accustomed to dominating the kingdom, her strategy was a threat to their wealth and their future. Behind the scenes, rumors of resistance coalesced into concerted opposition. Liliʻuokalani perceived as a just action, her foes saw as rebellion against their interests, paving the way for one of the most dramatic confrontations in Hawaiian history. In January 1893, the undercurrent of tension at last boiled over. A cabal of American and European businessmen, referring to themselves as the Committee of Safety, conspired to depose Queen Liliʻuokalani from authority before she could reinstate her constitution. Supported by US Minister John L. Stevens, they called upon the aid of American troops already present in the area. Soon, US Marines marched through the streets of Honolulu, their presence sending a chilling message: the monarchy stood alone. The Queen, determined to protect her people from bloodshed, chose not to resist with force. Instead, she yielded her authority under protest, believing that justice would later be restored through the United States government. But the overthrow was swift and decisive. Hawaii's monarchy was dismantled in just a few days. To the Queen and her subjects, it was a bitter betrayal, the moment at which an island monarchy lost its independence to outside ambition in the guise of protection and order. Following the coup, Queen Liliʻuokalani was confined to house arrest within her own palace. Despite being stripped of power, she conducted herself with grace, becoming a symbol of passive resistance. Confined to her rooms, she embraced music and writing and wrote works that still resonate through Hawaii, such as her popular song Aloha, Taioi. She lobbied relentlessly on behalf of her people, never willing to give up hope for restoration of her kingdom. Even in captivity, her dignity won loyalty and grief from Hawaiians. To most, she was not just a deposed monarch, she was the pulsating heart of a nation silenced. It wasn't until 1898, however, that the United States officially annexed Hawaii, thereby ending any hope of restoring the monarchy. The islands, once an independent kingdom, were now a US territory and eventually the 50th state. It meant loss of sovereignty for Hawaiians, but not loss of identity. Queen Liliʻuokalani spent the remainder of her life a testament to what was lost, her legacy forming the cultural pride of Hawaii today. Her tale isn't history, it's a lesson in power, resistance, and resilience. If you think more should be aware of this forgotten chapter of America's history, share this story today.